I'm Peter Holzer, I'm from Zurich. I'm doing Plone since 2004. I'm doing Plone since 2004 and I'm part of the Blue Dynamics Alliance. Maybe you heard of that. So I live in Switzerland, and from the nature of the country we have several languages to cater to. How many of you have used Lingual Plone? How many languages do you produce content for? 2? 5? Wow. So Plone Multilingual has a kind of new concept. The languages are in their own folders. They're not in the kind of mixed up same root structure anymore. We don't have a canonical object where you translate from. You can translate from any content object to the other. You can also link existing content items as you could before with Lingual Plone. And yeah, maybe let's just dive in. So we create the. That was a nice CMI, by the way. So let's take the normal one. So many English. And down here, Plone Multilingual is part of Plone 5, but it's not installed by default. So you have to install it. Ha ha ha. Then you have the Plone 5 site. To configure the languages, you go to the language control panel. There you select the languages that you want to use. For me it's German, and let's take French. Here you can choose to show flags instead of the language names, and the second checkbox shows the language selector at any time. So even if the content is not translated, it will show up and you will be able to switch between the languages. Then this also moved from the CMI to Plone control panel. The basic language setup and negotiation stuff. We have here, don't go into that detail. That's the content translation help. So when I save here, it created my language root folders. So if I go to the start page again, I had French before, you see the empty language root folders. So what it did, if you go to contents, it added the language root folders for you. And the default contents is still there. So if you need that, you can just copy it or cut it out. Go to your maybe English folder and paste it, and then you fit again. So we want to create content and translate it. So maybe create a news item. Got a picture as well. And then what you get is the translate menu from Plone Multilingual. You have several options here. Basically, if you have not translated your content yet, it says create and the language name. If the content already exists, it will be just edit translation. So we have the Babel view as we know it from Ringelblum before. We add our content. And also we add the image again because it's a separate content object. So we switch to German. Now it's called Übersetzen instead of translate. And I can edit the English version from the menu here. But we want to do another translation. Now we can switch between the languages which are linked. The portlet shows up because it's the default setting from the news folder. What you see is within the languages we didn't have the news folder set up. We just translated those pages and it took the nearest location that made sense. So because we don't have the news folder or not translated news folder, it put it up in the root of the language. So I don't know let's start with translating the news folder as well. Oh, wrong. I'm translating the collection, sorry. That's the collection would have been created in the root again. So what I try to do is set up my basic structure first. Because after you edit all the content, it's quite hard to get the overview of what is there and what is in the correct location. So let's translate the folder first. And to French. I hope I get it right. Something like this. And what I can do now is I go up to my language folder. Got my content and put it in here. Same for German. And I'm all set again within the folders. English isn't displaying because this is a collection that has review state published. Just if you ran into that. So let's go to the translation menu again. Now you see you have the edit item. I could also add more translations, but it doesn't make sense here because we already have those translations. So what I do is I remove a translation and it isn't deleted, it's just removed. say add translation again, French, and then I can go through my contents. Let's see. No. Did I delete it now? Sorry. Yes, I deleted it. So let's do it the other way. I create a news item, get my content again. No. And now try to add the French version here. Oh. Yeah, here it is. And now I got my French version again. So in Lingual we had a thing that you could have a folder that is universal or not language dependent in that way. We don't have this in Plone and in Plone Multilingual, not anymore, but we have a universal folder. Which is called media. It's possible to rename it if media is already kind of blocked with another folder. And this folder is just mapped into the other languages. So here you can upload all your standard images that won't change, or maybe documents. And you can also create a collection that pulls content from there. So my French is not that good. So So these are the contents from the universal folder, and they will be available in every language. If you have documents that you want to display from another language, you could also do a collection. If you put an absolute path in there from the site route to your other language, you can also display other stuff here with that. So any questions?
Just to be clear, Clone App Multilingual is available but just not installed.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yes.
Is it available in the stock phone?
Yes.
Or you just have to activate it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then, so it's not hard to retrofit a site for multiple languages, right?
No, it's quite easy. The only thing is that you have to reorganize your content if you didn't set it up from the beginning.
Right. Does it work with dexterity objects and custom dexterity objects?
Yeah, sure. We just have to add the behavior that it's translatable, yeah.
It's smart enough to even translate images. So if you have text in an image,
Yeah,
it's
then,
different.
yeah.
So instead of beep beep, it might say.
Exactly. So what we did for a project of mine was for a Swiss company, and they produce lots of documents, and they had the requirement to display all content, or like the missing content that were untranslated within the language. And that was kind of hard for the amount of documents. You don't want to put them all in the universal folder, because that's just universal. It's not language dependent. So the request was German was the main language. Then they had translations to English, maybe French, and maybe Italian. And they wanted to display just the missing documents from another language. So instead of showing all documents, they wanted to add the missing ones. That wasn't possible so far. We made an add-on. It's a separate index. We released it these days. It allows you to define a fallback. So you have a control panel. It's a simple JSON format where you define your language fallbacks for each language. So, for example, German, English, French, in that order. And for English, it's maybe French and Italian, and then German. And what it does, if you create the content item, it checks what languages are already translated, and indexes the missing language versions from your fallback. So the content, if it's translated, is in the correct folder, but it is displayed within a collection, for example, like for the documents. And if you click on that document, you get transferred to the original place where it's created. So it allows you to kind of summarize or accumulate contents, so to show a most complete collection of information. And what we also did for the project was a package that was called Lingua tags, because they used keywords a lot within the project. And what we did there is we defined canonical language for the keywords. So in this case, German. And we made a control panel overview where it could translate the title of the keyword. And within the views, we overridden the keywords widget or the viewlet. And the search tag is still the German one, or the canonical somehow. And for display, we use the translated one.